Good morning, good morning, good evening, welcome, good afternoon. Welcome to our Playthrough Revolutions September 2017 series of audio or videos intended to further politely warn you strongly against voting this October 2017 in this country, but to instead join us in demanding an indigenously well-informed, well-organized National Citizens Convention or Sovereign Citizens Convention, at which representatives from all of our major social groupings, well qualified and orderly selected, will assemble for weeks to boldly, openly and constructively present and debate all of the deadly, dangerously deep-seated, bloody problems and issues of our country, to collectively find lasting solutions, design new orders of things in society, craft new working systems and corresponding institutions, while legitimizing an interim arrangement to replace the current illegitimate Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's government. Please access our Playthrough Revolutions or revolutionary articles and materials from different sites and locations, including https://webs.facebook.com/playthrough2013 for more details and clarifications on these many life-saving debates and arguments. Before enlisting to you the 5 audios or videos that constitute the second batch of our voice-recorded messages to this Liberian public in the world over, with the first batch of 6 huge files spanning a combined total of 27 hours, which we published in March 2017 and are currently at https://pmlv, all lowercases, then uppercase U, 0. And before announcing to you the title of this particular video that you're about to listen to, we'd like to first of all inform and encourage you that because of our strong desire to see that these messages are clearly understood, to see that these messages go through, and because of our deep awareness that we are on a revolutionary campaign and not on a mere information dissemination move or a mere academic exercise, our titles, our captions, our topics are so long enough where necessary for and far above convention, since we vow not to sacrifice the clarity of our messages to mere convention or formality. So we say, please bear with us in this direction, where you see you hear the topic so long or the caption so long. Please bear with us, and rather we're asking you to please concern yourselves more with understanding the main themes in these long titles or captions than the formality that accompany them. Having said that, the 5 new videos that we have produced to inform and guide all of our activities henceforth, inclusive of how we keep pushing our revolutionary case against LPRC that is now before the U.S. Embassy or before the American government, and then our friendly civic injunction against anything called casting ballot for American Liberia or casting ballot during this very harsh month of October, just to prolong the sufferings of our people, just to dig another 6 feet hole for our country. We're saying these are the new videos or audios that we've produced to help you, to encourage you that voting is not a way out for us now. Not because voting is bad or elections are bad, but we have a terribly wrong foundation. We have a terribly phony foundation that we must work at now instead of keep maintaining and sustaining this foundation. So video number 1, LPRC's video number 1, Liberia's widespread criminal scams under the guise of carrying out infrastructural rehabilitation, a case study of LPRC from 2005 to 2017. So Liberian SOEs, the state-owned business enterprises, are in the business of lying whole day under the guise of carrying on infrastructure rehabilitation. So you will get a case study of LPRC alone, which covers the time period from 2005 to 2017 through this video. Video number 2, we dare the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia to ever respond to our well-documented claim that America is the biggest source of all of our problems, both individual and collective in this country. Video number 3, why do we, the Playthrough Revolution, talk the way we talk and act the way we act? Video number 4, if God ever allows an American Liberian Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to author and usher any peaceful, credible, and sustainable democratic transition, then he, God, is mocked, and God forbid, our God Almighty is never mocked. Video number 5, LPRC, EJS, GOL, and US Embassy keep paying deaf ears to our legitimate demands. They keep paying deaf ears to our legitimate demands, exposing the Catholics to great danger and the sad fate of the likes of Michael Allison, Harry Greaves, etc. But we warn that any inch of harm to any one of us, family members or revolution members, will lead to catastrophic ethnic violence, which itself will drag into an ultimate third world war to be inflicted by God and not us. So with this knowledge about the 5 new videos, we now take this time to welcome you to video number 3, which is entitled, Why Do We, the Plaintree Revolution, Talk the Way We Talk and Act the Way We Act? Again, welcome. We say, when one's eyes begin to truly open to all of what's happening in this funny place called Liberia, they will discover with broken heart that we sadly live in a very bastardized, wayward, and dead society, a very careless society that lacks discipline and takes nothing seriously. And even as we will place it very strangely here, a society that doesn't take seriously the primary purposes for which it was even established by its conceivers and designers, which are to pursue wickedness and to promote mischief making. That's a strange part we're talking about. Even the purpose, these are the 2 purposes ACS established this place for, to promote wickedness, to promote mischief making. Liberia even does not even take these strategic goals seriously. Nothing is taken seriously here. Things are handled, but the jokingly that they carry on things is again very dangerous. So Liberia is just a big dangerous joke. Things are handled here in a dangerously joking manner. And this society unfortunately feels that we can just live life anyhow without regards to global standards, without regards to conventions, without regards to the demanding quality standards of our fast-growing world, and sadly by living forever on the crumbs or leftovers dropped down to us by human beings from other societies or races. When we read the literatures of activities from societies within the very serious world, we discover that people take very seriously every issue pertaining to their lives, ranging from the issue of what they eat. That is, for example, taking into account the right mixes, the schedules, and how to eat. They take seriously the issues of what to wear. For example, they are concerned about such things as what to wear during which season. They take seriously the issue of what traditions, norms, cultures, etc. must govern all the human beings living within their societies, and how to ensure and enforce these ways of life across the board in a fairer and more sustainable manner. What their resources are, and who manages these resources, and how, etc., do all matter to people living in serious societies. So people who live in serious societies have concern about all of these things, and they make sure they check out how all of these things are working for them. Every citizen's welfare and what their circumstances and their values or their importance are to the society are all things that do matter dearly to every serious society, etc., etc. In such places or in such society, each human being or each citizen is considered an equally important cog in the chain of society, without which the larger or bigger societal chain will experience some disruption, and as such, things pertaining to any of these cogs in a bigger chain of society carry the weight of a societal problem or draw the attention of the society as a whole. So every citizen is taken very seriously because they are a cog in this chain. And you know, when one cog in the chain has problem, the chain itself has problem. So people take issues pertaining to single individuals in a very serious society seriously. But when we keep seeing and experiencing a dangerously different and gloomy way of life in our part of society, knowing and only being influenced by the concept that education through research is the only reliable way of solving the problems of human societies, no matter how deep-seated and deadly those problems are. With our society being of no exception, our God started bracing us one way or the other, based probably upon the qualities that He saw in us, to be able, through His help, through His grace, to work on our part of society's problems. So we said, probably because God saw that we were concerned about these kinds of weaknesses and deadly problems of our society, He Himself, one way or the other, started bracing us up so that He can work along with us through His grace to be able to change things around. He saw in us to be able, through His excuse, we're saying, since angels will not come down from heaven to do this for us, neither will the United Nations, the United States, or EU ever be able to solve any of these huge societal problems for us. So our God decided to start working with us. Our God did such work, meaning trying to endow us with the right virtues, the right education, the right age, in the right circumstances, etc. Somewhat consciously to us at times, but in many respects we remain very unconscious about this obligation or assignment and its preparatory formalities at many times. We see, because God saw such quality in us, He has been working with us, but we've been very unconscious sometimes. Sometimes we feel conscious that, oh, probably He's using us for certain things. And you know, before this happens, He has to endow you with the right virtues. He has to endow you with the right skills. He has to endow you with the right education. He has to endow you with the right age, because age is also important in what we're saying. And the circumstances, He has to create the circumstances for you to be able to start working with Him at solving major problems. Sometimes the circumstances He creates, in fact, in all cases, they will never be bread and butter situations. Tough circumstances will be created so that He starts to work with you to solve societal problems. So we say, because the provision of, or the making available of the right circumstance or circumstances to begin and execute this change process remained an indispensable part of the formula. Our God, who has started working with us all along, who speaks through His numberless agents, our God, who works through different events and happenings, our God, whose instructions don't come to us necessarily as bread and butter, our God Almighty, whose instructions or blessings we don't have to agree to or approve of, etc., settle the issue of the right circumstance with respect to our collective societal change assignment on January 25, 2013, when, after serving our first employer, the Liberia Petroleum Refining Company, or LPRC, for up to 10 years up to the managerial level, the company decided, based upon some hastily fabricated corruption allegation, to abruptly terminate our employment services without any benefits, without any prior notice, through a process that took less than 24 hours, and all this sadly criminally done with one-page communication, that starts with unimaginable errors and ends with very condescending errors. This point has been stressed in all of our videos because this is a proud experience that has led as a jump, the springboard to our revolution. So we always have been able to mention it because we want to remain appreciative to God for this circumstance. Though it appears as tough, it was approved by Him to help us to do what we're currently doing for our society, to do what we're currently doing for His children, And so we must always proudly mention it in all of our videos. Unconsciously again, we did not know that right circumstance piece of our societal change assignment equation was the one that had now come our way. We didn't know when this happened. We didn't know that it was this piece, the circumstance piece, that had now come our way. But with God's grace, He Himself again started leading us through the redress process of this encounter with LPRC's injustice in a fashion as if we were conscious that this was that final term in our societal change quadratic equation. Know that we do have a good number of articles, as we were just trying to mention, that talk about this case and its redress process in clearer details. However, this video is dedicated to how our spiritual, mental, and emotional orientations enhanced by the 4-year-long experiences with the handling of this case of ours with LPRC have given us a completely different picture of our Liberian society, all of which finally have set into motion our divine societal change assignment process under the auspices of our revolutionary social movement, a peaceful one, revolutionary social movement established by us with the help and guidance of God through these experiences, which is now known and styled as the Plaintree Revolution. Here, therefore, based upon the title of this video, why we talk the way we talk and act the way we act. First off, research and its findings again backed solidly by our original spiritual, mental, emotional, and even physical orientations are reasons for which we talk and act the way you hear and see. Let us then list several quotations, observations, and some summarized findings of our research activities. We say we talk the way we talk, we act the way we act because our lives have been driven by research. We research even what to eat by His grace. So research, and its findings backed solidly by our spiritual, mental, and emotional, and even physical orientations have been one of the reasons why we act the way we act and talk the way we talk. We continue on to say, so we say, note that each key quotation, during these researches that we've been doing for these 4 years, we came up with observations and some summarized findings of our research activities, which now form the key guideposts of all that we are now seeing and doing, and all that will in turn now form the guiding principles, God willing, for the rest of our national collective sojourn in this country henceforth. Through our researches, we came up with observations, quotations, summarized findings of other researches done about our country, and we're saying all of these findings now are going to serve as our key guideposts as we move forward as a country and a people. Note that each key quotation or observation will be preceded by a short commentary. Note further that this first batch of 2 quotations and 3 summarized research findings about Liberia, all external or from external sources, do give us the greatest clue, and all is wrong here, and they provide the greatest motivation at the individual level that change is a must in this place now, and must be physically, dramatically, and in other peaceful means demonstrated, but never more suggested or appealed for. And these big five excuses include, let's reread. Let's go back to this point. We say these are reasons why we act the way we act and speak the way we speak. We say, first off, research and its findings again backed solidly by our original spiritual, mental, emotional, and even physical orientations are reasons for which we talk and act the way you hear and see. Let us then list several quotations, observations, and some summarized findings of our research activities, which now form the key guideposts of all that we are saying, are now saying and doing, and all that will in turn now form the guiding principles, God willing, for the rest of our national collective sojourn in this country henceforth. Note that each key quotation or observation from these research sessions will be preceded, that we are going to list here, which have now formed our motivations. We are now serve as our motivations. We now serve as the guiding principles for all that we are doing under the Clean Field Revolution. They will be preceded by short commentary. Note further that this first batch of 2 quotations, those quotations that have motivated us, those quotations that have brought us this far, and 3 summarized research findings about Liberia, all external or from external sources, do give us the greatest clues that all is wrong here. And they also provide us the greatest motivation at the individual level that change is a must in this place now, and must be physically, dramatically, and in other peaceful means demonstrated, but not anymore suggested or appealed for. And these big 5 research findings plus quotation are as follows. If you get it clearly, we're saying these 5 research findings, 2 are quotations and 3 are summarized findings. They have given us the motivations, and they have also demonstrated to us that everything is wrong here. And based upon this knowledge that we have, we are saying change must never more be appealed for. Change must never more be suggested. Instead, change must now be demanded. As responsible citizens, there are times that we make demands and not just keep suggesting or appealing. We appeal this, it should be so. We suggesting it should be so. We're saying appeal, suggestions, the times are over, and it's now time excuse to demand. So based upon what are we demanding? Number A, which is our motivation or finding number 1. A, all of the deadly problems of this country and the gloomy state in which it finds itself owe to how its founders conceived it in their hearts, then subsequently designed it on people, and then finally went about unleashing it. And all this was done both at the establishment of the American Colonization Society in December 1816 with the overriding goal of rounding up dangerous black elements from the American society and dumping them somewhere on the African continent so that they run things on their own, since they had become increasingly threatening and dangerous to the American society. And ultimately, the physical onward setup of such a place called Liberia on the African continent finally happened in 1822 to this effect. Okay, this is how Liberia was established. This is a succinct story behind Liberia's establishment. Now, from research, here is how one Mr. Patrick Jake O'Rourke, he's an American journalist and historian, he has said, those who don't know their history, we're quoting him directly, quote, those who don't know their history are probably not going to do well in their English and maths. So this is the quotation now. If you know that your country was established based on such arguments, people have become dangerous in one society. They have become, their actions have become unbearable in one society. They have become a serious threat to that society. You round them up systematically and you dump them on another soil, impose them over another group of defenseless people, and you say run things your own way because you don't fit in our society. So Patrick O'Rourke is saying people who don't know their history are probably not doing well in their English and math. So the people of this country will keep complaining. Your root, if it is not undone, if this foundation is not undone, if your beginning argument is not undone, nothing will change. This is an argument from the devil's belly. Research finding number 2 or B, we say Liberia is so negatively strange in its approaches to handling the challenges of life and just everything else for that matter, to the point that there's a popular local and probably world adage about this Liberia that says that there are 3 kinds of human beings on planet Earth, and these 3 are the white man, the black man, and the Liberian man. So because of the strangeness of how a typical Liberian or the Liberian society handles things, there's this popular adage that there are 3 kinds of human beings on planet Earth, which are the white man, the black man, and the Liberian man. They are saying that this adage paints Liberia in a very negative way, which is justified. With respect to this reality, Dr. James Simon of New York authoritatively declared from years of research that, quote, this place, which is Liberia, is an example of America's ugly affairs with slavery that produced an illegitimate and abrasive child named the Republic of Liberia, a nation state with twisted approaches and thwarted modus operandi, unquote. That's another research finding for why Liberia is so negatively strange. Finding C or 3, Liberia was established during the early part of a basic century that saw most of the key discoveries, inventions, and cutting-edge technologies that have greatly shaped human affairs and the way we do things on this planet today, which is the 19th century, and Liberia was established for, populated with, and governed by people who had proudly come from the parts of the world that were at the forefront of all of this discovery and invention bubble or boom, or all the civilization boom. But all the way into this 21st century, or 2 centuries on after the establishment of Liberia, when most of these 19th century and earlier inventions and discoveries have been heavily improved upon, with new ones added at breathtaking pace, Liberia has absolutely nothing, or Liberia has absolutely got nothing in its over 195 years to ever contribute to this world, or even to shape her own life, let alone the lives of other human beings elsewhere. So you were established at a time that inventions were booming. There was a bubble of inventions and discoveries and all sorts of cutting-edge technologies, but up to today, 2 centuries on after the establishment of Liberia, now one thing Liberia can be counted for contributing meaningfully and sustainably to this life that will keep alive on planet Earth. So we're just here to live by what other people produced, what other people have produced, what other people can throw over to us. Nothing we have to contribute, or nothing this country has, we are not Liberians, nothing this country has to contribute to our world. All that this place knows is to live on other people's sweat and to garbage pick all day long, or to scavenge from the crumbs and wastes of other societies or people. Mr. Hugh Mason Brown of Washington, D.C. effectively provided the secret behind this sad Liberian reality in an 1896 work when he said in summary, quote, that the American-Liberian man, or the American-Liberian nation as a whole, is a place or a man who memorizes the higher education of other people without putting into practical use what he has acquired for his own benefit. That's what Mr. Brown says. The American-Liberian man, or the American-Liberian nation, is a nation that memorizes the higher education of other people without ever putting into practical use what they have acquired for their own benefit. He goes on to say, quote, that American-Liberian education and economic development are totally dependent upon American paternalism and goodwill and other foreign influences, all of which are preliminarily on foreign interests, based upon foreign interests in a country's natural resources. Let's go back. He says that Americo-Liberian education and economic development are totally dependent upon American paternalism and goodwill and other foreign influences, all of which are based primarily upon foreign interests in the country's natural resources. So that's the only thing. The development of education is just based upon people's goodwill, and this goodwill is influence is driven by what? People's interest, foreign people's interest in our natural resources, nothing else. He closes up for now by saying, quote, the Americo-Liberian is a man who in every line of life is a non-producer, and all that he possesses in life comes to him as a gift, either from other races or from the wild products of nature. Unquote. That's why Mr. Hugh Mason Brown in 1896 said about Liberia or Americo-Liberia. Then point 4 or D, Liberia remains a place and a people that keeps making the same mistakes over and over, keeps experiencing the same harsh fate and conditions indefinitely, and the people just point blank are stuck up in a vicious circle of injustice, poverty, corruption, and war. To this, President Xi Jinping of China has provided us a very powerful clue which says, quote, to forget history is a betrayal, meaning a betrayal regarding the sufferings, pains, and contributions of people who lived before us, and to deny past crimes is to keep repeating them, unquote. Let's re-quote it. He said, President Xi Jinping has said, to forget history is a betrayal, and to deny past crimes is to keep repeating them, in short, unquote. Then last but not the least here, which is point 4, argues, if one observes things with seriousness in this place, they will establish clearly, for example, that the extent of moral decadence or lack of morals in this place is beyond imagination. Immorality, whether broad day or secret immorality, is at its peak. Liberia is a highly criminal country, especially considering white-collar crimes, and the most prominent of which is endemic corruption, as constantly decried and reported by reputable international integrity and human rights institutions such as Transparency International, Global Witness, Human Rights Watch, etc. Liberia, since its establishment, is always in the news for the most uncomfortable and sorrowful stories and things, including news of crippling poverty, disease, grief, hunger, and so forth, and that the behaviors and approaches demonstrated by typical Liberians are predominantly queer, incomprehensible, and utterly counterintuitive, etc. To these realities, history has clearly provided clues or reasons for why all this, by saying that the people who established Liberia, the American Colonization Society or ACS, through its founders like Henry Clay, he was a congressman from Kentucky, John Randolph, another congressman from Virginia, Charles Mercetti from Virginia, etc., and the entire American South have earlier already described the founders and forerunners of the Liberian society as morally lax, mentally inferior, criminally oriented, and promoters of mischief. And these people are none other than the people that move and shake the Liberian society, in the likes of the Todmans, the Gibsons, the Browns, the Johnsons, the Bernards, and so on. If these people with these kinds of characterizations establish a society, if they establish a country, what else do you expect? So people keep crying, moral laxity, the immorality is so much, criminal endemic corruption, all because the founders and frontrunners of this society have been earlier described by the very people who brought them here as morally lax, mentally inferior, criminally oriented, and promoters of mischief. And people, history does not lie. with all this saddening knowledge of how things badly are for us, with a strong determination too to be used by God as agents of true change, our approach to things, no matter how dangerous it may be to us, has been a matter of different by the grace of God. And with this change process, all publicly starting with our January 2013 bogus dismissal, communicated through some badly error-laden one-page dismissal letter. These have first been our individual level motivations and approaches in handling this proud launching part of our plane to revolution. Please again be informed that enough of the things pertaining to this case are covered in other articles. Here we go with accounts of our individual level motivations and approaches thus far. A. To begin with, we quickly established that it takes the personal problem or experience of a single citizen, that is the way we decide to approach this case, this bogus dismissal that happened so suddenly, so shockingly, and so forth. We said to begin with that particular experience, we quickly established that it takes the personal problem or experience of a single citizen, or in our case here, the problem or experience of a Cathy or a Williams, to be factored into the group or national problem, or simply to be put into a national perspective as we go about looking for solutions to our general, national, or in this case, Liberian problem. That was a major motivation. Why we didn't just jump and started to look for our personal interests in response to our experience with LPRC. So it became crystal clear with justifications that this single Roland County versus LPRC case could be used as that springboard to the struggle for changing Mama Country for the better, or for the best interest of everyone by the grace of God. Additional motivations through research and from revered world leaders to recharge us at the individual level are as follows. So these are our additional motivations for going about this case in a different fashion, because God knows our heart. He knew our heart all along when this thing came around, and we said He works in different ways through different numberless agents. So let's see some of the motivations that we drew after some research, taking into consideration how to handle this experience with LPRC, just coming within less than 24 hours to issue dismissal and drive you out of your own offices, all of these kinds of raw deals. President John F. Kennedy once said, anyone can make a difference for their country, and so everyone should try. It started with a quotation, closing with a quotation. So unquote, we say again. So we say President John F. Kennedy once said, anyone, quote, anyone can make a difference for their country, and so everyone should try, unquote. Let's note here the motivating factor. Note that the challenge, however, is that no one knows exactly where such trying or trial could start from. Putting ourselves into the picture, why not this case between us and LPRC? Since anyone can make a difference and everyone should try, where should the challenge come from? Where should the challenge come from for you to try? Why can this challenge be in our situation here, considering this issue between us and LPRC? Then motivating point number 2, at the individual level now. The Greek physicist and philosopher Archimedes once said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I will move the whole world, unquote. Repeated, we say, the Greek philosopher and physicist Archimedes said, quote, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I will change the whole world. So then comes the question, why can't this case be that long enough level and the current atmosphere in our country be that fulcrum on which to place this level? Point number 3 is, how then, or by using what strategic means could a single case ever be used to bring about such sweeping change? That's another thing. Mr. Paul Hawken effectively finds an answer to this concern by stating, good management is the act or process of making a single problem or a single case in our scenario here so interesting and its solution so constructive to the point of making everyone to come together in search of its solutions. Note that some of these quotations are slightly paraphrased so that it matches what we're discussing. Number 4, then finally, as a point of motivation, then finally the question of by what tactical means. We first in point 3 we're talking about strategic means, which Paul Hawken answers by saying you can make a single case very interesting to the point that it brings everybody together, or you can make a problem very interesting to the point that it brings everybody together in search of solutions. Then finally the point number 4 now, by what tactical means, or simply where are the resources or finances going to come from to do all this great job, especially when even to place breakfast on the family table has become a huge challenge for a man brutally kicked out of job with no incentive and even no sustainable economic foundation yet laid before, with all this happening in a very poor society. You know, our economic foundation hadn't been laid because these years of work, you first have to work on your education, you have to work on your family's education, you have to work on a whole lot of things. So in a very poor country, it takes time to get established. You haven't gotten established one bit, you have no bank account anywhere, and such a disaster, financial, economic and other forms of disaster strikes you at this point. So tactically now, where will all of the resources come from for you to transform a single case into a national or international case to bring about change for your people? The motivation provided to trample upon this kind of challenge or concern was provided for us here by another American, Reverend Norman Vincent Peale, when he said, quote, empty pockets never hold anyone back, but it is rather empty heads and empty hearts that can do so, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, after having established all these kinds of facts and through all these kinds of individual level motivations, it then became a matter of necessity to connect the dots with historical and current event accounts of how single individuals and single cases have impacted our world, including the additional weight as a result of such new attachments that we will now accord this single January 25, 2013 LPRC versus Roland Carty's case, and how we are confident that it can now move our country and shake our world in whichever direction of the pendulum in which it is swung by the grace of God. Let's repeat this point. After having established all these kinds of facts and through all these kinds of individual level motivations, it then became a matter of necessity to connect the dots with historical and current event accounts of how single individuals, single cases have ever impacted our world, including the additional weight as a result of such new attachments that we are now according our single January 25, 2013 Roland Carty versus LPRC's case, and how we are confident that it can now move our country and shake our world in whichever direction of the pendulum in which it is swung by the grace of God. So to make this point clear, through explanation we're saying, after drawing all of these motivations then we try to connect the dots between other cases, other single individuals that use their personal cases to change our world. This tool was used to add weight to our case, to see whether it could be used to change our country. To begin with, no one should ever be deceived or made to think that we are doing all of what we are doing, going through all of the odds that we are going through, and enduring all of the long years of sufferings, humiliations, and painful sacrifices, etc., seeking redress for a single case, a single instance of injustice, and so on, because we are unable to peddle our way through this funny, weak, and highly criminal American Liberian system. No. Let's try to lay this basis first. No one should ever think that if we wanted to, or if we even want to now as we speak, we are not able to beat their system and hugely suck some of the country's already faint financial resources to, like others, to satisfy ourselves and the people around us, using a single case of ours that could even be won by a non-lawyer excuse or a plaintiff working without a lawyer. No. So we could use this case to suck hugely from this funny system too. Some of the already strangulated economy, we could suck from it using a single case. But that's not our intention. And no one should ever be tempted to think that we are enduring all these hardships and all of what we're going through because we are unable to easily push buttons to get back to work at LPRC, or just within a matter of hours if we wanted to do so on January 25, 2013, or today in September 2017, or even get a brand new job elsewhere more lucrative than what we have as a manager at LPRC. No one should ever be tempted to think in any of these directions, because by doing so they will be missing the mark big time. So it's not because we're not able to go back to work at LPRC. We can do it. Even as we speak in September 2017, we can do it. Even as they did it in 2013, we could have done it. Or we can find another lucrative job somewhere. Yes, we could leave all of us hanging on us at LPRC in American Liberia. American Liberia has no regards for morals or no regards for records. We could go even in government and become minister. We could find other jobs outside of government. There are some. We are fit to work in the foreign service. We are fit to work anywhere. We could forget about what's happening at LPRC and find jobs somewhere. But we have left all of this and we continue to follow, to seek redress for that single LPRC injustice. It is because of several reasons, as you will discover in this video further. Please don't ever think, we continue, that we are not fit to survive in this animal American Liberian system, because everybody knows by now that we are running some kind of social Darwinism in this place. We call it an animal society because it is thriving on social Darwinism. I think we all remember what Charles Darwin propounded. A very criminal one at that rate, a very criminal social Darwinism at that rate, whereby the most criminally fittest, being criminally fit here in our readings, in many respects, sometimes consciously or unconsciously, are the ones surviving. You know, Charles Darwin argues survival of the fittest. And so social Darwinism is about the survival of the fittest in society. And society was not intended for that. Everybody is supposed to survive in a society. A society is supposed to care for all of its citizens, because not everybody is able to rush to the boss. Not everyone is able to fight for resources. There are people who are handicapped. There are people who have many problems. And so a society is supposed to be built so that everybody can be able to survive and make life better. Please don't again think that, as we have now thoroughly established by God's grace, all of the deadly realities of this American Liberian justice system, we can still skillfully work our way through it and get our desires achieved. Don't think that the American Liberian system, we can go there and do what we want to do. We can tell you for free that some of us are well placed, well suited, and capable enough to peddle our influence through this American Liberian ratting code system to make LPRC pay us hundreds of thousands of United States dollars in damages or other penalties for the over 4 years now that they have illegally been keeping us off payroll as a manager. Yes, we could do so. We can tell you for free that the current Chief Justice, for example, of this system is our own tribesman. It's our own tribesman, our own countrymen, in our local parlance. The most reputable human rights lawyer that this country can ever boast of, a man that proudly served as some senior fellow at the Harvard Law School before, and a man who looked at the immeasurable level of cruelty and corruption within the American Liberian governmental arena and decided to wash his hands off it by honorably resigning his very high post in the Liberian government, despite government being the only place in this place with little life, etc., etc., is our friend, and in fact, he is a birthplace mate to us, as all of us were born in a town called San Nicolas in my county, and so forth. So we know we have attachments. We're well placed in a society. We could use our influence to get things done. As normally a typical Liberian would do, we could use this one case now, especially as it has turned so rep, we could use it to get hundreds of thousands of United States dollars from this stupid treatment that LPRC meted out to us. But we're saying we are not going to do any of these things by the grace of God. But knowing what is at stake in this country, knowing fully well what is at stake in this country, knowing how the American Liberians, using their criminal gang called government, have decided behind the scenes to criminally enslave the vast indigenous majority through different strategies, knowing how they have decided to criminally dish out all of our precious economic resources for their personal gains at the detriment of the huge suffering masses of this land, and the deadly strangulation of every future generations, etc., we established that by going to their courts, peddling our way and our influence through their system, paying bribes here and there, which is a matter of compulsion within the Liberian court system, and getting maybe $300,000 or $400,000 from LPRC for this intentionally criminal and careless action of theirs against us, will render us equally guilty of remorselessly joining this criminal stock of people called the American Liberians to corruptly prey on our country's already meager financial and other resources just for personal gains. So this is what it will amount to if we decide to peddle our influence through the system to maybe get $300,000. As we're speaking, they owe us more than $300,000. We could peddle our way through the system, we could peddle our influence through the system and get this money, but then we will be, because let's face the fact, this is how Liberian institutions operate. LPRC did what she did very intentionally because she knew whatever it cost her, a push came to shove, whatever it cost her, it doesn't matter to her. Because here there's nothing called accountability. People do anything at will. These are companies that we call corporatized government companies, SOEs. But all of these are lies. Liberia does not have any corporation. Liberia has partnerships where individuals just go and register those companies, and all of the proceeds come, it goes to their pockets. LPRC does not owe Liberia government money. She pays dividends, so-called dividends at will, sometimes $1 million, just to blindfold the public. LPRC is not a corporation. So they do all of these things knowing that the aftermath, they don't care for what will happen. $400,000 LPRC could pay it to us today. They will not move them because they're not accounting for anything. They don't care for what will happen. So we can't join these kinds of people to prey from the spoils of a deadly society that keeps our people as slaves. Come to think about it, we continue. Where will those $1 million in damages carry us if we are conscious, or if we consciously know that LPRC criminally meant her action intentionally without any regards whatsoever for what the economic and human resource implications will ever be. And this is how American Liberia, or American Liberians, have been running this place since 1822 to date. Enough reasons for which there are no good schools, no good roads, no good health facilities, no airports, no electricity, and just nothing substantial to serve its growing population as yet in 195 years. Careless criminal running of a country, we can join them. We just want our correct dismissal letter, that's all. They can carry all their money. So for us, instead of going that way, that almost everyone here would like to go, definitely, which is doing all they can, or doing all we can to claim huge financial damages from this kind of easy case deriving from such a stupid act of criminality and gross injustice on the part of LPRC. We have decided through God's guidance to maintain our strangeness to use this single, somewhat all-encompassing case to change our country, to seek independence for our country, to fight injustice, root and branch on behalf of our poor, defenseless people, to seek economic liberation for our country, and to advocate for past, current, and future generations by the grace of God. And this is that irreversible path that we have already been set on for the past 4+ years now by the grace of God, since this raw deal was meted out to us on January 25, 2013. From the kinds of experiences we have now had, and the kinds of theories now shaping our lives by God's grace, we don't overlook single cases. We don't overlook single incidents of excessive injustice. We don't overlook instances of confrontations, whether involving single individuals or groups of individuals. For single cases, single instances of excessive injustice, and so on, do have within them all that it takes to change a people's situation. We repeat, for single cases, single instances of excessive injustice, and so on, do have within them all that it takes to change a people's dirty situations around, all that it takes to change a people's bad conditions around, and all that it takes to change our world. The proofs of this claim are so numerous in history, and it is only a lazy and selfish people who will always want to use their personal ordeals, their personal encounters with especially excessive injustice, only for their personal gains. We are not like that. That's what we keep saying. We are not Liberians. And once people get so stuck to this kind of negative mentality, nothing will ever change for them. Let's look here, for example, at how these two small American cases involving single individuals or a very small group of individuals turn out to greatly change the ugly plight of a whole race of people in the United States, and to impact the form of government that we all now boast of today called democracy across the world, respectively. So these two cases were cases that derived from single individuals, but they turned out to shape our world. They turned out to shape a whole race of people, their situation in America. Case number 1. 13 parents, or case A, 13 parents designated as Brown, on behalf of their 20 children, took the Board of Education of the city of Topeka in Kansas in 1951. Let's go back. 13 parents designated as Brown, on behalf of their 20 children, took the Board of Education of the city of Topeka in Kansas in 1951 to quote, calling for the district to reverse its policy on racial segregation against their children. So 13 parents. They started with one parent, they built up to 13 and became Brown. Then they took the district, the Board of Education for the city of Topeka to court, calling on the district to reverse its policy on racial segregation against their children. When this case went to the Supreme Court, probably the district court could not solve it. When this case went to the Supreme Court in 1954, an all-white 9-bench Supreme Court under Chief Justice Earl Warren declared on May 17, 1954, that state laws establishing separate public schools for blacks and whites were unconstitutional, thus formally opening the way for the desegregation of schools across the country at a time of over 200 million people. A country at a time of over 200 million people. So 13 families, 13 parents now took this case to court, and subsequently or ultimately this case brought serious liberation for a country of over 200 million people at the time. When the Supreme Court of all white under Chief Justice Earl Warren ruled against the Board of Education of the city of Topeka and against every other state that had laws separating public schools for blacks and whites as unconstitutional, and thus a new day that dawned based upon these 13 parents' actions or action. B. For prosperous Maryland businessman William Marbury, or for prosperous Maryland businessman William Marbury's denial to take his seat as a federal circuit court judge in 1801, he sued former Chief Justice and incoming Secretary of State James Madison, and from this famous case tagged as Marbury versus Madison, the landmark U.S. Supreme Court ruling giving the court's final authority over all societal affairs, which was in reality explicitly clarifying and reinforcing a key democratic tenet called the doctrine of judicial review, was pronounced or ruled. So from a single case, Marbury versus Madison, this key tenet of democracy we call today the doctrine of judicial review was reinforced, in fact it was clarified after this ruling. Such clarity or reinforcement of this theory consequently spread out to all working democracies across our world today. Remember too that as this case was not initially a criminal one but a civil one, plaintiff William Marbury has some edge. He has some edge to have short-circuited this case in place of either fear to lose or some other personal interest or emotion, but he did not do so. Today, the concepts of the supremacy of the Constitution and that of judicial review have now taken their firm rightful positions in working democracies all across our world. So when William Marbury took this case to court, probably because of the circumstances involved, he would have, for fear's sake, decided to just cut the case short, because as a civil case he had the right to withdraw, he had the right to stop it, but he did not do so. They went into it, and because of this case today, whomever won, whoever lost, because of this case today, the major tenets of democracy that we call supremacy of the Constitution and judicial review all took their firm roots in every working democracy across our world. So we're saying people who sadly at the hearings of such accounts, like the two above, among thousands, about how cases involving single individuals or small groups of individuals can be used to change our country and our world, and are still trying to overlook our ruling Carty versus LPRC case, they should now take a little break and think twice. As this seemingly simple case of ours, and its 4-year running now, has been able to bring to light a whole bunch of many of the foundational mess holding our country and our society down since 1822. This case started off with LPRC. From where it was generated, it has now drawn in the entire government of Liberia. It has now drawn in the illegitimate Liberian state itself, and then the superpower Uncle Sam himself. This case of ours also proudly has been able to again invite the United Nations in for an additional time into Liberian affairs. The case has also brought the United Nations on board. To prove this claim, when our case packed on January 25, 2013, which was on Friday, the next Monday, the next working day, which was Monday, January 28, 2013, a whole series of very shocking revelations about all the ulterior motives of LPRC, and by extension, the ulterior motives of the American Liberians who front-run this society and their GOL and the American government against the blood, wishes, and dreams of the huge indigenous populations of this country began to get told in whistleblower stories and accounts in the Liberian press. So just to tell you the weight of our case, after this raw deal was meted out to us on Friday, January 25, 2013, by Monday, which was the immediate next working day, a whole series of shocking whistleblower revelations started off in the Liberian press. You can investigate this truth for yourself, or you can investigate this claim for yourself. These powerful anti-LPRC, anti-American Liberians, anti-GOL, anti-US government, mainly by extension, kind of revelations featured in the newspapers as whistleblower narrations started filtering in, as mentioned earlier, as effectively as the very next working day after our ordeal, which was January 28, 2013, with key among the publications including A. So these are the kinds of whistleblower revelations and shocking revelations that began to flood the Liberian press right after our ordeal on Friday, the next Monday. So we continue. We say A. Story title. A back page story titled "Witch Hunt at LPRC. One dismissed, others to follow." It came in the Microscope newspaper of Monday, January 28, 2013. That was the first story. Right after the action of Friday, a back page story came up in the Microscope newspaper entitled "Witch Hunt at LPRC. One dismissed excuse, others to follow." B. A very criminal response to this January 28, 2013 whistleblower story came up in the People's newspaper on Wednesday, January 30, 2013, which was entitled "LPRC Dispels Media Report." So the next story that came up was LPRC's criminal response to this back page story from the Microscope newspaper. So on Wednesday, January 30, 2013, they went to the People's newspaper denying everything that the Microscope newspaper had just reported 2 days earlier. The trouble continued. On Tuesday, March 19, 2013, another bombshell was thrown by a whistleblower in the New Democrat newspaper, further damaging LPRC, the American Liberians, and by extension their master America, by exposing the secrets about how these wicked people truly want life to be so miserable for us and our future generations in this place, as they go about intentionally, mischievously suffocating and damaging our economy right before our own eyes. So this story this whistleblower story explained the kinds of mess going on in our so-called economy, while Liberia can never take root, while Liberia can never stand, while the arguments of Liberia can never stand, because everything we do logically depends on how we take care of our economy. So this whistleblower account of the way LPRC handles its economy, or handles the Liberian economy, and how by extension all of the SOEs here go about handling this economy, came up in a Tuesday, March 19, 2013 edition of the New Democrat newspaper. Further terrible revelations and related stories in the same direction followed in subsequent newspaper publications, such as story titles: 1. LPRC concurs with whistleblowers graft claims, New Democrat newspaper, Tuesday, April 16, 2013. 2. Trend of vicious lies and gossip abhorred, Concord Times newspaper, Wednesday, April 17, 2013. Some shameful and ineptly worded public service announcement linked to the earlier January 28, 2013 story appeared in the Wednesday, July 24, 2013 editions of both the Nation Times and Microscope newspapers, and then the Monday, July 29, 2013 publication of the People newspaper. In between and early to mid August 2013, LPRC still made mention to these earlier developments, or of these earlier developments in the Microscope newspaper and the People newspaper using the New Democrat newspaper. So around August again, LPRC was still publishing stories that pertain to the January 28, 2013 Microscope story and the January 30, 2013 People story. Still yet, other exposure of this deep-seated Americo-Liberian conspiracy that keeps unraveling itself to us in somewhat simple but actually serious forms on a daily basis in this country include within the following titles. So again, these other news story titles again keep explaining the kinds of things that we're experiencing in this place that are sufficient reasons for why we can never take root. Our society can never take root and go anywhere unless we undo its civic foundational theories and redo them. A. Dismissed LPRC employee opens up in-profile daily newspaper, Tuesday, August 27, 2013. B. LPRC board management linked to double payments, the Heritage newspaper, August 28, 2013. C. In GSC report, LPRC admits to blunder, the Heritage newspaper, Monday, September 2, 2013. And to pause for now, D. LPRC reacts to GSC report, CNN Liberia, September 3, 2013, etc. and etc. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to this groundswell of very negative publications against a single state-owned business enterprise that should be earning billions in revenue per annum by now and paying hundreds of millions to billions to the government and people of this country in yearly dividends everywhere, is serious people, which unprecedentedly saw more than 20 deadly publications coming against LPRC. That means this groundswell of negative public publications that saw more than 20 deadly publications against LPRC just within the space of 8 months after your criminally stupid action against us earlier that same 2013. When we look at our first playing through revolutions or revolutionary civic action, when we took our first playing through revolutionary civic action as a simple family on Monday, April 22, 2013, reactions from passers-by, the public, and LPRC's own employees quickly blocked traffic in the Bushra Islands Freeport community, prompting the LPRC authorities to immediately rush outside to begin negotiations with us to return to work, but as usual, the Liberian way, a way which will blatantly refuse to right whatever the available wrongs are before ever moving ahead, and we vehemently rejected their offer by God's grace after a series of engagements that took up to another 3 months. So we repeat this point, that in addition to the many publications that came up against LPRC, so unprecedented, for around 8 months, more than 20 negative stories to just come up against one SOE, everything explaining about its corruption, its endemic corruption, a place that has 5 statutory mandates, refine, produce, import, finished product, store and supply, but only stores for predominantly foreign capitalists and earns few cents as storage fees per gallon. It is that kind of SOE that all of these negative stories came up against in less than 8 months, or in around 8 months. More than 30 stories came up against LPRC for her endemic corruption. But in addition to this, that came right after our situation or our encounter with them. When we as a family now under the Plain Revolution took our first civic action on April 22, 2013, reactions from passers-by, the public, and LPRC's own employees quickly blocked traffic in the whole Bushwell Islands Freeport community, the community in which LPRC PSC is located, where our civic action was held that day. It became blocked. Prompt in less than 30 minutes, traffic could not move any further, and LPRC authorities immediately had to rush outside to begin negotiating with us to return to work. But as usual, the Liberian way. So we said earlier, that way which will blatantly refuse to first right the wrongs. Come to work. Come to work. What happens to the dismissal letter? Is it corrected now? What happened to the process? What happened to your allegations? We wanted us to come to work, and they were so stupid enough to even start asking us to do some kind of apology, because it became shameful according to them. It became shameful, so let's do something that will cause you to just come back to work. And by God's grace, after a series of engagements with them, the way they wanted to play the game, we said no, we will not come to work. We wanted this whole issue first resolved before coming to work. Either give us correct dismissal letter or apologize for all of the damage that you've caused, or do something. Let's right this particular wrong. On Tuesday, December 10, 2013, which was coincidentally during the homegoing of Africa's greatest liberator, Mr. Nelson Mandela, when we took a second Plain revolutionary direct action, another civic action against LPRC, and by extension the government of Liberia. The demand we made was a bit more wider ranged, it was a bit much stronger, and thus radical to the LPRC authorities, and as such, as a culture of using intimidation to scare away productive dissent, the LPRC authorities ordered 2 pickup loads of Liberian National Police officers to come and disperse our peaceful, mainly family action. We then embarked on a third Plain revolutionary civic action against still maintaining our action at a smaller scope or smaller scale victimized vision bearing family level. In small number, we continue to go as a family because we believe all along that a family, a simple single family, can start the change process. And we wanted, because of the immaturity of the parties that we've been dealing with all along, we didn't want huge crowds every time. We wanted to go as a family. So our vision bearing family again, for the third time, took its direct civic action now to the U.S. Embassy, the American Embassy grounds in Monrovia, based on our firm conviction drawn from multi-year theoretical and practical research findings and years of observations that the great United States of America, apart from being the one that inflicted and implanted the biggest share of the conditions in which we find ourselves in this place, they themselves went ahead and named their Liberia. They also are the ones who keep running the show called government and governance in this place. Sufficient reasons why they are the only best authority to intervene in our saga with LPRC. So based upon research findings, multiple year research findings, we established that they established Liberia, they even named their country, they are running a show, they have unqualified, unmatched influence over Liberia, and all of these institutions. We decided, and not just from theory, from practical research, from practical analysis, we got to establish all of these serious facts. So we decided to take our problems at their doorsteps. So this third action of ours which logically is still ongoing, saw us doing this very rarely seen thing in a society or in this country, which is marching peacefully into the main premises of the American embassy here in Monrovia. That's a no-go zone, because the American embassy is heavy. People don't carry peaceful march there. You stand outside, the security will tell you, stand outside, stand to the main gate. We stood up at that gate for 3 weeks. The first day of the 4th week, we decided to march inside because we had all of our backings that we could stand anywhere to petition any group or petition any authority once we were peaceful, once we were orderly, and once we had all of the justifications backing our actions, So this time, not begging them for assistance. It was very strange to them, because they saw a group not begging them for assistance as they are used to experiencing from the people of this country, but instead politely demanding them to intervene in offering us redress or helping us get redress by all means for what their proteges, LPRC and the GOL, were doing to us or are doing to us, because it continues. After 22 days of peaceful moderate engagements with the U.S. Embassy, gracefully enduring and sustaining scorching sunshine, as we repeat in every one of our video afterwards, scorching sunshine in the day and deadly mosquito bites at night, right before their embassy's main gate, as a simple revolutionary family of 10, including a young pregnant woman of less than 30 years and 2 kids below 10 years of age, awaiting the U.S. Embassy's response. Madam Kimberly Jones, the regional security officer of the embassy, comes to meet us on behalf of the embassy on Wednesday, April 19, 2017, with the embassy's position that our case is purely domestic, not worthy of embassy's intervention, but that we should take it instead to the Liberian Ministry. We normally say the American Liberians, or like American Liberians Ministry of Labor, a position we disagreed with so strongly and an advice we vehemently rejected, again all done politely. Since then, we have still been engaging them and providing them more justifications for why we believe they must intervene and save our family, our indigenous African family for that matter, from this injustice at the hands of an American Liberian institution backed by its mother structure, which is the GOL, with this gross act of injustice increasingly harming and eating up our family to seriously life-threatening proportions within its 4th year now, almost 5 years now, as we have nowhere to turn, while at the same time we have vowed not to stray from our path by the grace of God, since we have given this case to our country to begin its change process, God willing. That's where we stand this September 2017 of our LPRC versus Roland Curtis case, with even stronger determination to further go on the offensive again peacefully and constructively against the Americans, to secure this much needed redress for our LPRC inflicted injustice and harm, psychological and otherwise, to our very persons. From action number 1 on April 22, 2013, to action number 3 beginning March 29, 2017, that ended April 19, 2017, the Liberian National Police has been our witness every step of the way, in addition to working with us to ensure the security and integrity of our actions. By God's grace, we always remain grateful to the LMP. One big achievement we have proudly been able to score thus far is that through all of these actions, our perspectives about Mama Country, including all that we want now for our dear home, have now been made relatively clear to those that we considered the biggest stakeholders in our country's affairs, although one of them leans more on the negative in the negative direction or on the negative side of the pendulum, while the other leans more on the positive side of the pendulum. And those two biggest stakeholders, those two biggest stakeholders are the United States and the United Nations respectively, with the United States leaning more on the negative side of the pendulum as a major stakeholder, while the United Nations leans more on the positive side of the pendulum as a major stakeholder, in fact the biggest stakeholder. So again, those who still overlook our case should now begin to think twice. And just as we provided you proofs in a previous section or sections before this one, the previous section before this one, excuse, about how cases involving single individuals or small groups of individuals do have the potential to positively impact our countries and our world at broader scales. It is moreover important to discover that such superficially simple cases, as people look at it from the beginning, do also have the propensity to cause great altercations and even ultimate bloodbath if they are not taken seriously as they escalate. So we're saying, just as these cases can shape our country, they can shape our world, they can also cause serious problems for our country, they can cause serious altercations, they can even lead to war if care is not taken. Let's look at a few here, with emphasis again limited to dismissal cases that turn out very sour in the end for a whole institution, a whole people, or a whole country, so as to sound a very strong caveat out there to people who unfortunately continue to overlook what stupid dismissals like our Roland Cathy versus LPRC current brawl can do, if not giving its rightful and timely attention. Here we go, or here we come with only 3 in a sample. So we're saying, do not overlook especially stupid dismissals. They have the propensity to drag you into something untold. They have the propensity to do so. So here are just 3 proofs. Before continuing, please let's do this this quick point. Let's make this quick point clear to you. We're seeking your understanding. Wherever these recordings appear coarse in quality, we just beg you for your understanding, because we're doing these recordings under very harsh circumstances, in very tough terrains, excuse us. So the quality, sometimes you will have problem with it. Sometimes the background is very noisy and there are a lot of disturbances, but we just beg that you please bear with us. We continue thus. We say, if you overlook what stupid dismissals can do, their propensities or their potential to drag us into untold mayhem or into untold happenings. Let's see these 3 examples. A. John Cruz, Vice President and Senior Business Relationship Manager of the Long Island, New York branch of the HSBC, which is the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, was prematurely fired out of witch hunt from his position around 2011 or thereabouts, for what HSBC management termed was Mr. Cruz's poor performance on the job, all because this man had been noticed for personally trying to investigate the bank's involvement with an international money laundering scheme involving hundreds of billions of United States dollars. Remember HSBC, this $2.7 trillion asset and over 250,000 employee international bank, headquartered in London but operates in more than 80 countries around the world, has been established to be notorious for laundering money for corrupt government officials, including presidents, and also for celebrities, warlords, drug lords, and the list goes on. This is according to news outlets such as WND and the UK Guardian, etc. Not knowing that Mr. Cruz had already managed in advance to pull some critical documents out of the system before his fifth dismissal, Mr. Cruz delivered to the WND, an American investigative media outlet, some 1,000 pages of customer account records as evidence for these money laundering activities that he had been monitoring independently. As a result of these exposures, HSBC, to cut long story short, got subjected to a U.S. Justice Department investigation that culminated into the bank paying a fine of a walloping $1.256 billion to U.S. government coffers while pleading to avoid further criminal charges. This was during December 2012 under the gavel of the then U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Madam Loretta Lynch, who later became the Federal Attorney General under President Barack Obama. All this information were made possible and reported by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the New York Times, the Associated Press, and others. Then B, still on what stupid funny dismissals can do. The first one dragged HSBC into paying billions, a little over $1 billion in damages to the US government, and also they had criminal charges hanging upon them that they had to plead for it to be dropped, just because of this firing one John Cruz, prematurely and stupidly doing it based on witch hunt. Point B, one key event that sparked the 10-year-long bloody French Revolution that began in 1789 was King Louis XVI premature dismissal of popular Minister of State and strong reformist Mr. Jacques Necker from his position. So because of Jacques Necker's dismissal, premature dismissal, the French Revolution was sparked in 1789, and those who are reading their history will know how those 10 years of carnage really shook the French foundation or the French society. C, Riek Machar was prematurely sacked, by President Salva Kiir in July 2013. The result was a full-blown civil war that began in December of that same year and still has that African and world's youngest state in shambles to date as we speak, etc. and etc. So based upon some of these kinds of narratives that we have brought to you thus far, someone doing a careful analysis will now establish that we are not doing all that we are doing either because we are incapable of surviving in this bad American Liberian survival of the criminal fittest society. Survival of the criminal fittest. Remember we told you earlier, the criminal we're talking about here could be either conscious criminals or unconscious criminals. But there is a nasty survival of this criminal fittest society, or probably because of our lack of exposure or contact, or because of fear of somebody or some people, or because we want to use a single case to enrich ourselves, or yet because we probably have lost our senses or our sense of direction, or that we are just point blank less busy. No. It will be a great mistake if anyone ever thinks that way. If we are allowed, however, an opportunity to come in to find answers to these genuine concerns of yours, or to help you either confirm or disprove some of your suspicions or some of the analysis that you've derived from your analysis of what's going on, will tell you that even though other peripheral things may come into the picture, we are into all this long suffering behind a single case that can be abandoned just any time within a matter of seconds for three big reasons, three big goals, three big aims to be realized in the end by God's grace. And these three big aims are as follows in the order of importance. That's why we find ourselves in this thing, not because we've lost our sense of direction, or not because we can't drop the case today and find different things to do, but we're here because of three main reasons. We are continuing our suffering and insisting that this case be handled systematically, beginning with its foundation, which is this one-page letter, and continuing. Maybe we could start at that one-page letter because we just want certain things set right, based upon the kinds of debates that God is preparing or has prepared us now to bring to the fore in this society. So reason number one, we want God's name to be glorified very big time. That's our Creator, that's our Savior. That's the only man that we owe all of our lives and our existence to, and we bear witness for how wonderful He is in the lives of people who place their unqualified trust in Him. And in a society that wants to pay lip service to Him, we want His name to be glorified through these experiences of ours by His grace, because we can't do it all by ourselves. We want for people here to get to know that with Him, that is God, nothing is impossible, and that only God deserves mankind's exclusive devotion and fear. Not another man, not another human being, not America, not Russia, etc. Only God deserves our exclusive fear, our exclusive devotion, and not man. So that's one of the reasons why we are in this case, and that's one of the reasons why in fact, the major reason why we continue to go the way we are going. Number two, we want the United Nations huge efforts and multiple tens of billions of dollars invested here since 1990 to yield their desired lasting and substantial and sustainable dividends by the grace of God. United Nations is very honest in our reading from our investigations. In fact, we feel that they are agents of God here to help us to do those things that we never had time in our 195-year history to ever do. And they have spent billions of dollars here. We want, through the grace of God, for their investment to yield its desired dividends. For us, we have now, through these engagements and our exclusive preoccupation with our country's matters for these long years, gotten to deeply understand that the United Nations is here as God's agents or representatives, as we said earlier, in terms of love, sacrifice, and the provision of a wide open opportunity, a wide open window of opportunity, once in a lifetime, for us to do what we have never been afforded the opportunity to ever do here for ourselves before. In 195 years of our phony existence, and some of these precious things include the following. So we're saying the United Nations came here so that we can do at least these two. Attaining for ourselves true independence. Attaining for ourselves true independence, so that we begin to experience for ourselves the meaning of governance, the meaning of economics, for example, the meaning of true justice, the meaning of development, and all of these kinds of stuff. So the United Nations came here so that we can have an opportunity to really understand what these things are, which all do hinge upon, first off, gaining our truthful independence, something that has never happened here before. Two, thinking out of the box to design and craft civic theories and policies for ourselves. That's another thing the United Nations presence here does afford us. Their presence here affords us the opportunity to be able to craft new sets of civic theories and policies for ourselves. Based upon the United Nations presence, at least today we can talk about changing our flag, we can talk about changing, even our Declaration of Independence needs to be redone, because we keep insisting that Declaration of 1847 is fake. Only the United Nations now, her coming here, her presence here, can afford us the opportunity to do all of these things in a more objective fashion. For we believe that on the sad contrary of these, America and American Liberians continue to remain agents of the devil in our lives. For this pair or duo representing the devil is dug in her heels to ensure that no sustainable and genuine change ever takes place here, and that we continue to remain a very dull, unproductive, and faithless people for them to keep riding and preying upon forever. This pair is dead set to ensure that she horribly frustrates all of the United Nations efforts to change our home for the better, etc. And we believe we can use this single case of ours to bring all these deadly truths to light, as we are now doing by the grace and approval of God the King. 3. Related to the first two, we are in this struggle to see to it, God willing, that all of our people of past, current, and future generations are redeemed. That is, for example, we want all of our past generations to get recognized and accorded their due justice for the countless abuses that they have suffered here, beginning 1821 at the hands of the United States and American Liberians, etc. For our present and future generations, we want money to see. Again, excuse us please for that distraction. We're saying for our present and future generations, we do want them liberated from the deadly yokes of America or American neocolonialism and imperialism and the American Liberians' ethnocentrism, in order for us to live a dignified and productive life as compared to the mess ongoing, and exclusively excuse for our future generations who continue to sadly be murdered well in advance, day by day here, based upon the leadership and management actions, our leadership and management actions. We want to redeem their lives by God's grace, and strangely to the ordinary ears, we believe this single LPRC bogus dismissal case of ours can be positively and patriotically used to first bring all these issues to the fore, and then begin working upon them for the ultimate change that every well-meaning person here now truly desires. So we are saying that we strongly believe that nationalism and patriotism can also be reflected or demonstrated in how we are willing, able, patient, and consistent enough to transform a personal, seemingly insignificant experience with injustice, especially excessive injustice, into issues that will spark huge societal debates for the sake of positive change or social change in the end, by the grace of God. Now, if one case can be counted upon to achieve all these great goals in the end, God willing, then one can now figure out why then will everything pertaining to such an experience not be taken seriously. And in this case of our January 25, 2013 bogus dismissal, with a very faulty one-page communication, where then would our first emphasis in such a redress ever be laid other than on the dismissal instrument itself, which justifiably qualifies as the foundation of all of this experience? So it then becomes clear to all now why we are sticking on that letter first, which is because that's the root of all that we are talking and all that we have been talking for these 4+ years. That single page dismissal letter is the foundation of LPRC's arguments and actions against us. It also is the root for all that our family has been exposed to since January 2013, including our inability to now feed ourselves adequately, our inability to send our children to school, our inability to pay our huge rental arrears, our inability to attend to the needs of our multiple extended family members that already began counting on us for a whole lot now in their lives. And most dangerously, our exposure to the twin threats of American Liberia's mischievous force of vengeance and reprisals for any soul that stands up for the truth against them, and America's imperialistic underhand maneuvers to silence elements that pose threats to their unspeakable capitalistic gains and racketeering campaign going on in this place, etc. Although we remain unwaveringly confident of our God's protection every step of the way by His grace. An adjoining point here is that as problem solvers, another point added here is that as problem solvers, We must be able to attack our problems from the very root. So we're saying an adjoining point to this issue of sticking on a dismissal letter is that as problem solvers of society, we must be able to attack our problems from their very root, from their very foundation and their very beginnings. And we believe, based upon our approach to this case, that this is what our God is proudly or has proudly raised us up to bring to the table, to bring to the fold in solving these small, poor West African countries' very gigantic problems by His grace. So connecting the dots between our case and our national advocacy for change, that single page dismissal letter as a beginning theory or foundational theory or founding theory of LPRC's action against us is synonymous with Liberia's Declaration of Independence, its flag, its seal, its motto, etc., forming its Liberia's founding civic theories, all of which have now failed with the passage of time and can no longer hold water or suffice, and must, not may, be changed now if we want anything better out of life as a people. We believe that as a people, if we don't immediately set our foundation right by abolishing first off and then redesigning all of these founding civic theories, nothing worthwhile will ever be accomplished by us now and in the future. This is the biggest problem that our country now faces, and that's why we are insisting, as we have been doing since 2013, with regards to our faulty dismissal letter, by God's grace, that all these national symbols and emblems of ours be changed henceforth again by the power of God. So just to connect the dots between the kinds of vision that we have for our country and how it aligns with our personal experience with this issue of LPRC. All that we have been discussing thus far have been our individual level and family level findings and motivations. But as we have every time been mentioning, these experiences have also culminated into the establishment of a whole peaceful revolutionary social movement named and styled the Plainfield Revolution. Further terrifying findings about our society that this new revolutionary social movement and its thought processes, its own theoretical and empirical findings too, have exposed us to, for which change continues to increasingly become an unconditional must for our country right now, God willing, as follows. So apart from the individual level discoveries, the individual level motivations, we've also at the Plainfield revolutionary level also discovered things. Number one, as discovered during our individual level assessment of this place, our revolution establishes with much graver concern that Liberia has a twisted understanding of life, so much to the point that this reality can be openly, sadly reflected in how people practice, exercise, and proclaim their spiritual and religious beliefs about this place, or in support of their country, etc. So Liberia's twisted understanding of life is also badly reflected in how we practice religion, how we use our spiritual strength here to take care of civic matters. For example, Liberia's religious people, sadly, this is our prejudice to our people. We are seeing every step of the way that these conditions were imposed upon us here by a superpower. They continue to be sustained by a superpower just to keep us as a mass of stupid, faithless people for life, so they can use our deficiency, our incapabilities, and our handicaps, so that they can prey upon our society and all of our natural and other resources forever. But God forbid, He is the man who can correct things at any time He wants to, and He's ready to intervene. So we say, for example, Liberia's religious people, sadly, haven't yet known through the actions that they put up, they haven't known yet that the same God of peace that we serve is that same God of war. He suggested, for instance, in He suggested, for instance, in biblical passages such as Ezekiel 3:14, that is not one-sided. He can do anything. So he's also a God of peace, he's a God of war. And he suggested this in several other accounts in the Quran. Liberia religious people haven't known yet that the same God that grants people the peace and reconciliation that citizens and so-called politicians sing songs about from dawn to dusk so dishonestly and so sycophantically is that same God that can inflict wars, earthquakes, and epidemics, etc. And which one of these experiences that we encounter or comes our way, or how successfully we survive or withstand their shocks whenever they come our way, are all determined by how seriously and honestly we apply God's principles or heed to what He says we should do. So we don't understand this thing yet. We think God is just a God of peace, peace, peace. But strangely in Liberia, you will see one time or the other the religious people, the religious community gathering and physically and publicly demonstrating their desire for peace and all of the good things out of life. But you will never one day see the same community publicly gathering in mass to demonstrate their desire to see God's applicable laws to national governance ever applied, or their desire to see government goes the way that God wants it, God instructed it to go. You will not see the religious community insisting upon this. For instance, as you see the religious community in this place backing their political leaders during some crisis that actually are produced as a direct result of these so-called political leaders' consistent, blatant disobedience to God's principles. You will see the religious community wearing their t-shirts, white t-shirts, and gathering at different open fields like the famous fish market field, the ATS, the SKD, and the likes, to pray for peace, or to pray for successful elections, or to pray for Ebola to go, etc., etc. No one can ever recall in this country's almost 200-year running seeing a religious community publicly amalgamating in their white t-shirts to go to the legislature or the executive mansion, for example, with the preponderance of proofs about how justice is always being shot in the head here in an effort to tell their leaders about how there needs to be an unconditional U-turn in a way that the very serious issue of God's justice is being consistently and persistently abused here. Or how, for example, it is their desire, that means it is a religious community's desire to see an accused lawmaker doing all these things to prove all of these points. So, to prove their desire, for example, that an accused lawmaker or even an accused president faces the court immediately, since the God that all of us serve is so much interested in seeing justice first before ever granting peace and stuff like that. No one will see the religious community insisting upon these kinds of points. God hates lying and deceit so badly, including the offshoots called corruption, for which He can sometimes close His eyes and wipe away a whole generation of people, a whole group of people, a whole ethnic community, let alone keep their lives dull forever. So if He can wipe them off, what's about keeping them dull forever? God hates lies. He hates corruption so much that He can take these kinds of drastic actions. But here, no one will ever one day see the religious community gathering, for example, in mass or in some peaceful assembly to dramatically ensure that lies, deceit, and corruption, which are an everyday phenomenon, broad day phenomenon in this country, and are so much endemic, are ever brought to book and dealt with, etc. If we have such a God-fearing and not a human-respecting religious community, again without prejudice to our people, then they would have ever since by now backed Dr. Elwood Dawn in his National Symbols Review Committee, or simply they would have backed the Symbols Review Committee. We don't know what is Elwood Dawn who has it, but he's part of it. They would have backed this committee with their fish market style or SKD style gatherings to ensure that all these countries now proving messy emblems and symbols are revised or correct or changed by now. They will again have backed the glorious CATS Constitution Review Committee with their physical open-air campaigns and rallies in t-shirts, white t-shirts, to ensure that this country's bloody and messy constitution is by now revised or completely rewritten. They again, from this religious community who are always in a fish market style prayer session and stuff like that for elections and stuff like that, they would have backed beyond just prayers, as others will be claiming that they are doing prayers with their physical bodies in their white t-shirts. The 13-member TRC Board of Commissioners and the international community in ensuring that all of the TRC's recommendations are implemented ever since. All because a true servant of God, again we say without prejudice to our people, must know by now that the God we serve is interested in these kinds of developments first, before ever granting anything called peace and reconciliation, or before saving a people from looming dangers like the upcoming October 2017 bogus polls that is poised to cause major harm again or major catastrophe, or before saving a people from or lessening their injuries from an imminent earthquake or tsunami, as signs have already started showing themselves. No, earthquake or tsunami, nobody wants it, but signs have already started showing themselves if people are not careful for us to begin to fear God and do the right things. I think it is 1 Corinthians 4:14 verse 40. One of them, 1 Corinthians 14 verse 40, shortly, that says, God is interested in seeing everything happening decently and in orderly. For fellow citizens, even these cruel people who have blindfolded us, who have brainwashed us, even in religion and spiritual things, and have made us to get stuck to thinking only one way in our entire lives and talking only one way about God. Like, for example, how they encourage or psychologically intimidate everyone here to only sing peace and reconciliation chorus while forgetting to sing war, earthquake, and pestilence chorus equally, to scare everybody into doing the right thing with fear and trembling for God in their hearts, which are the American Liberians in the Americas, these people who cause us to live this kind of life, including the very people that are in power today in our country, are people that we all know by now did use these same formulas of wars, threats, and intimidations to succeed in all that we see them doing around today. The very Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, for example, and majority of her conscious followers, including their external backer America, who talk peace, reconciliation all day here, but looked at our one-time chance for lasting peace and reconciliation using the only right tool, which is justice, through the TRC process that at least wanted to start a process, and they shot it in the head right before our very eyes. These people know very well, as they are direct, consistent or constant benefactors, that we do need intimidation, violence, and wars. Though well-intentioned ones, and not the likes of theirs, to get our dreams for Mama Country across at times. No matter those dreams, although we must sit here justified by good and honest dreams. So we're saying these people, they know very well that sometimes violence, intimidation, wars are needed for our true dreams, for our dreams for country to come to light, or for our dreams for country to ever be realized, whether good dreams or bad dreams. For them, their dream, we see how it is realized through the barrel of the guns here. That's why Ellen, for example, dedicated more than half of her lifetime orchestrating all of the bloodbaths in this country for her ideas, her dreams, like some of those portions of her dreams that we are enjoying today, through a strong economy rooted in her Harvard school training to be realized. And because she is an expert at deceit and faking things, she duped the international community in making them to shoot themselves in the leg by granting her the most prestigious Nobel Peace Prize for so-called working to prevent deadly crises. Can you imagine that? Ellen receiving a Nobel Peace Prize for working all her life to prevent deadly crises. My foot. Now, fellow friends and listeners, if Ellen and her collaborators, both domestic and international, can use this formula to work for the devil against us, then what would be wrong when we, instead of advocating bloodbath, use strong words and justified threats and warnings rooted in God's principles just to bring lasting peace, relief, reconciliation, true one, redemption, and dignity to God's suffering children in this place once and for all by His grace. And as we said earlier, that we, children of God, serve a God equally of peace and of war. It's now time that we actively use both words, both phenomena in our ensuing advocacy for stability, but first independence and then peace, reconciliation, and prosperity in this country once and for all. For all through mankind's history, it is war which is characteristic of God's character. It is war that has been used to find solution to very chronic and terribly ingrained societal problems. But this can only worth the salt and be successful when everyone or majority knows what the issues are or what are at stake. Let's get back to this point. You see, for all through mankind's history, it is war. Something which is also characteristic of God Himself. War is characteristic of God Himself. That's the message we want to inculcate into our people. It is war that has been used all through mankind's history to find solution to very chronic and terribly ingrained societal problems. But this can only work the salt. That kind of work can only work the salt and be successful when everyone or majority of the people know what is at stake. If they know all of the big issues in your country, that's the only time that war can be fruitful. In fact, as a worthwhile repetition here, for emphasis, we are saying that the God that we serve in our churches and our mosques does approve war. Only that He approves it for the right purpose. But because of devil's cleverness, he has taken onto this formula that is war to consistently or constantly intimidate God's children and to place his part of theories and arguments above those of God. We say, God forbid here again, in our country's case, by His grace. Pastor Rick Warren of the Saddleback Church in California, for example, states that God, through biblical backings, that God approves war for three big reasons, including one, to obtain freedom or to preserve it. Two, to defend poor, choiceless, and innocent people from the deadly maneuvers of the usually privileged and cruel few working as devil's agents. And three, to stop the rampant spread of evil and mischief, as in the case of Liberia. In addition, for instance, to many Quranic verses, such as Surah 2 verse 139, such as Surah 2 verse 193 and Surah 4 verse 75, wherein God instructs such fighting or war, as we will see here. Biblical passages such as Numbers 32 verse 6 indicate how God gets mad with the children of Israel for not going to war to claim their possession. 1 Kings 22 verse 3 to 5, Joshua 1:18, all of them point to getting on some constructively violent offensive, if that's what it takes for us, God's children, to ever claim our rightful possessions and our inheritances in line with our Father's will. Liberia's history indicates a very small, poor, cruel, and visionless country, again without prejudice to our good people, that has experienced more than 18 bloody civil crises, inclusive of 13 full-scale civil wars, 4 coup d'etats, and 1 national riot. With all these experiences, unfortunately and sadly, having been used by the devil to further implant its nasty influences over our people and our society more and more, like how the past 14 years civil crisis was used by the American Liberians just for power and revenge sake as it's being implemented and demonstrated here by Madam Salif and her cohorts. However, fortunately, we now see the forces of good waking up and smelling the coffee for their part of offensive, which could degenerate into war, although only if the forces of evil don't come to their senses to get into their shells right now. We believe a hint to the wise is quite sufficient. So as the forces of good begin waking up to smell the coffee, we want to advise, we want to caution the forces of evil. Anybody that shoes face can wear it. The forces of evil should now take this debate very seriously, because the same force that you think you have, God can empower the forces of good to possess even triple that force. Again, just as we brought you some of our individual level motivations, our group level, meaning plain to revolutionary level motivations, after all these, and many more fearful findings about our country's plight can be listed here too as follows among many. So, in addition to our individual level motivations that we discovered through research, our group level motivations or our group level research findings can also too be enlisted here as follows excuse. Number one, with the kinds of knowledge that we now have about our country and why we are the way we are, and why more grief, disaster and gloom even await us if we sadly don't make a radical U-turn right now as a people. Right now as a people, our revolution is saying here that we can never sit by again. By the grace of God and by His power, to keep seeing the very noble and respectable calling of leadership and governance of God's children, a divine calling at that rate, to continuously be, a divine one at that rate, to sadly continue in the society to remain a criminal scheme and maneuver of ever heightened conspiracies to deceive and make mockery and ass of and kill our people forever, as it has been designed here since 1822 by America and her American Liberians. We can't sit to see governance just being a scheme to make ass out of our people forever. We can't continue this. We can't just cope with this at all anymore. For governance comes from God, as He is the greatest and head of all governors. Government is the tool or institution decreed by God to effect the leadership and management of His precious children, His cherished creation, and their affairs. That's why in God's words or scriptures, serious emphasis is laid on such issues as who should make up government and how God's children are to respect and submit to government. God does not play with government. So it's not somewhere that people just think it is their farm, or it's just think it's place to go to enrich themselves and play ass of the people forever. We're saying this must come to a close now by the grace of God. So we continue. Just as when God's temple got so badly polluted with such vices as the suppression of the poor and greed for profit making in the days of old or in biblical times, Jesus Christ, out of righteous indignation, put aside all civility and diplomacy and physically, or one would say here, violently kicked asses in cleansing up the temple twice. That is in John 2:11-12, Matthew 21:12-13, etc. When we, just as Jesus did it as an example, when we, children of God, empowered by Him and with good intents, do see God's noble institution of government, as the Americans and their Congo boys and the Congo people have sadly set up here since 1822, and reigning here up to 2017, being turned into a den of thieves. In short, when we as children of God see God's noble institution of government being turned or being interpreted as a place of a den of thieves, in a place of capitalist and imperialist profiteering and racketeering at the expense of the blood and happiness of countless millions of current and future generations. Let's go back. This point needs to be emphasized. When we as children of God do come to ourselves and establish that God's noble institution of government, like in the case of this place, has been turned into and is being interpreted as a place or a den of thieves and a place of capitalist and imperialist profiteering at the expense of the blood and happiness of countless millions incurring in future generations, then we are under obligation to muster the divine and civic courage to cleanse or purge this noble institution. God will not send down angels to do this job for us. So we are under obligation to clean this noble institution so that it serves God's children the best way possible. That's our obligation. God will not send angels to do it. For this is an account of Jesus Christ's using of some relative force, or again some would say some relative violence, to straighten up things according to Christian teachings. Our Islamic brothers too will agree with us that Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him, who was very peaceful and civil, always requesting amicable means of addressing and solving issues from the onset, was later constrained into using some force too to get certain things straightened up or to defend God's principles, especially when, according to Islamic history, he started being assaulted in the city or town of Medina in Saudi Arabia. All of these are not because our God Almighty does not have the force to strike directly for himself or to strike directly, but because he has designed life in such a way that his creation be afforded, we now his creation, be afforded the opportunity to go beyond just words and physically demonstrate the extent to which we are prepared to defend his precepts and his principles in appreciation of owing our entire existence to him and none else. So it's a way to that God wants to see how far we can go, demonstrating our love for him, demonstrating our indebtedness to him for being created by him. We got to go just beyond words, just beyond having prayer and fasting. We need to take actions. And for us, as far as we are concerned, the best and greatest or most privileged way of serving God is to be able to stand up for his children, to be able to bear the cross on behalf of his innocent, abused people, whether these people themselves can even recognize this or not, especially when God himself brings this kind of opportunity before us, which does not come through bread and butter as people would normally see. For Jesus himself suggested this point in Matthew 25 verse 41 to 45, that we must be able to stand up for our suffering brothers. That's the heaviest way of showing love for God. For we just can't manage, we continue to say, we just can't manage or continue to cope any longer with this U.S. and American Liberian civic design for our country and our people anymore. And there's no subtle way again to present this decision. From all indications, the world can now see that the American Liberians are just absolutely incapable of doing anything else objectively and sustainably excuse, let alone the noble and delicate responsibilities of governance and leadership. They can't do just anything objectively for themselves, let alone that delicate responsibility of governance or building a viable, prosperous country. They just can't make it 200 years or 195 years and no sign of a stable country. They just can't make it. They just can't make it. Their designs are so worthless and criminal. And true God's children must, at some point in their lives, be able to rise up, wear their coveralls, roll up their sleeves, and get down to the mud or dust to clean up society. For service to God should never be regarded as a bread and butter vocation or a coat suit kind of job or kind of work alone, especially every time. Let us all here, Christians, Muslims, and all alike, get to know that there's no simple joking struggle for a country. Let it be clear that anytime people begin the truest struggle for liberation and independence, they now speak some level of sufferings, they now speak some level of disgrace and humiliation, and painfully some level of blood at times. Not that they ever wish for these kinds of things to happen to them, but because these things must happen too to add value to the process and to make it stronger and to make it worth it and to make it work in line with what God Himself has said, which is that we human beings will have to acquire everything or achieve everything worthwhile by the sweat of our brows. That's what the Bible says, and what shows there will be some account of the Quran that talks about that too, that we have to suffer for things before they are done. Everybody knows that nowhere in history was independence ever gained merely as a result of one group of criminals just sitting and writing one stupid letter to one funny NGO, and then bingo, independence came about. It's a lie. For independence has almost always been achieved by the honest, sustained and well-intentioned and mostly bloody struggle of a group of people who have come to themselves, known their own self-worth, developed a sense of self-determination, and are now ready to control their own fate and destiny alone. So what we have probably begun here since April 2013, under the auspices of the Plain Revolution by the grace of God, depending on how the powers that be react to it, depending on how the citizens embrace it, depending on how our God Himself comes in, which is based upon the first two conditions earlier, could go on for the next 6 months, it could go on for the next 1 year, it could continue on for the next 10 years, and even 50 to 100 years. But the battle has begun. So we should all now place it at the back of our minds that we are about to make history together for ourselves, our fellow human beings, and most importantly our Creator, who loves these kinds of struggles, sincere struggles, to be put up by human beings. He loves for these kinds of sincere struggles to be put up by human beings in pursuit of His principles of justice, love, truth, etc., for the benefit of His people. For we believe that God is now ready to work in our situation as a people, and as such we do warn that no one should dare stand in the way of these strange new debates, let alone think about wasting a drip of blood, because the repercussions will be very terrible based on God's reaction. Because we fear standing in God's way. That's why we are talking and acting the way we are doing. The way you hear us and you see us going about. And the way you see us act. We know that no one here is used to the ways of talking, or is used to these ways of talking and acting. But who are we to tell God no? That's the time. Or no, that is not time, or the time is not ripe, or these people are not yet ready. Who are we to bring these kinds of concerns or bring these kinds of complaints to God if He's ready to work? When He instructs that certain things must be done or handled different ways now, as He is ready to act. We are conscious and very sure that all level-headed persons in this place agrees that in order for real change to ever happen in our home, we must speak and act in a fashion that is not normal to this environment anymore. We are sure many persons recall Councillor Bonnie Sherman when in his 2013 Independence Day oration he suggested that there are some things that we must do here that we have not done yet. He continues, there are some ways that we are supposed to behave here that we haven't behaved so yet, or some things that we have to speak or say that we haven't spoken or said here yet, for which we are going nowhere in life as a people. For we believe in these kinds of admonishment and believe that we must speak some ways now to be able to spark change here, whether we ourselves like it or not. And these are all of what the Plain Revolution has now taken the lead in doing by the grace of God. So, as we have clearly expressed ourselves in these matters, we are doing all this excuse, we are doing all of what we are doing and saying all of what we are saying because we don't believe that people preserve their life or their own personal interest or comfort or life as a whole by standing in the will of God. And so we are acting completely out of fear for God, and it is left of the people who want to defy God to come at us, all because we have spoken true and strong words and expressions and did not use guns on issues that justifiably require the use of guns, etc. We see, finally, on the issue of why we are getting out at such a time, especially when the country is so much engulfed with some activity that makes our cause, our arguments sound very belated or untimely in the ordinary ears and concerns like that. Here are a couple of our proud defense. We're saying, number one, we want for everyone to bear us witness or to bear with us that the job of telling society to go a different way, that job of telling people to make a U-turn, when almost everyone is leaning or swinging in a specific and different direction, and that job of telling people to do X, when almost everyone is there set to do Y, etc., is the most difficult and even most dangerous and most uncertain task on planet Earth, as declared some time ago by the famous Italian 13th century philosopher and leader, Mr. Niccolo Machiavelli. It's difficult. So, like in our case, telling the Liberian public such things as A. Early in our government should now be replaced with an interim leadership while we go into some national discussions about the fate and future of our country that will see us redesign our society and its institutions. People should not vote this October, but that all should join us in peacefully clamoring for such a citizens get together in place of elections. We are talking like what we are talking about. Let's go back to the point. We are saying, in our case, for example, what makes this kind of work difficult? In our case, telling the Liberian public as we speak now, such things as ailing in our government should now be replaced with an interim leadership or interim arrangement while we all go into some national discussions about the fate and future of our country that will see us redesign our society and its institutions. B. People should not vote this October 2017, but that all should now peacefully clamor for such a citizens get together in place of elections as we are talking about, etc. It's one thing to say these things, is one thing, but defending it to the core, defending these kinds of arguments to the core, convincing all stakeholders, remember your stakeholders are not only domestic, convincing all stakeholders, both international, internal and domestic and otherwise, is a very difficult task. It is like swimming against the ocean's current. Remember that you need enough information to share with everybody. To get this kind of information, however, is one thing, but you also have to check different sources to get the information from authority. In the case of society, as we're speaking about here, or in these kinds of social issues as we're talking about, you must be able to close your information with some spiritual authority, then with some legal authority, then with some moral backings and authorities as well. All of which will have to cause you to reshape and then redesign more than once all of your raw data that you had earlier collected before massively communicating the refined outcome, meaning the vision with all these different backings now to all your stakeholders in society before you begin taking the center stage with your debates and ideas. Imagine having a basic message, but then you will have to tweak it a little to develop something to communicate with the churches. You have to communicate, what you have to communicate with the security community must also be tweaked to match your language relatively, although with the theme and the integrity of your main message still maintained. This goes with what you have to send out to the student community, the intellectual community, the political parties, and your international stakeholders. So these are all of the things that you need to do before you can take the center stage. And all of these things, these processes require time, because any idea that you can live for is an idea that you can die for. You need to do the best you can to live for your ideas. All of these different parties, we continue to say, or stakeholders, must be communicated with, both respectfully and eloquently, about your vision and about your perspectives for country. For the past few years, since this vision came to us, this is what the Plaintree Revolution has actively been involved with, one way or the other, as the beginning of every endeavor, especially such national endeavor everyone knows, with a huge international peace attached to it. Like what we're talking here must be the most difficult moment, the beginning, i.e., must be the most difficult moment. A difficulty which too is terribly exacerbated by the kinds of unspeakable inadequacies and handicaps of our society. But some momentum to this process was added this year, earlier on, when we communicated our perspectives in full, God willing, to the two biggest stakeholders in this country's affairs, which in order of importance are the United Nations and the United States. United States through her embassy. We continue to say that ever since 2013, every small step, ever since we started our small step revolutionary actions in 2013, every step we take, we send out information to a long list of people and institutions who, based upon what we hear them say on air and based upon what we read from them in the newspapers, we think will welcome these kinds of new, strange, and productive ideas. That's how come, for example, the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Jordan Porompier, a diaspora-based Liberian journalist in the United States, and Mr. Franklin Wisse's CEO, his intellectual center called CEO, which means Center for the Exchange of Intellectual Opinions, proved themselves to be heroes to our revolution. After we had served more than 40 copies of LPRC's criminal nonsense called corruption to the LACC, one of the auspices of our revolution, or the Plaintree Revolution, and these three parties, over 40, these three parties were able to respond and make us to feel that we were not speaking or talking nonsense. In our latest action, in the latest actions that we are taking now, or these few days, which is by going on the offensive, constructively and peacefully against the United States for what we consider now they are being responsible for all of our major problems in this country. We did not just wake up and start this process and start going. We led a long list of people again that we consider critical voices in our society to know, no matter what difference we have with these people, we let them know about these actions in some appreciable details. This is in line with our original collective action approach that we adopted since April 2013. And so, in this direction again, we wrote a couple of people in the legislature, including Senate Pro Tem Amanjala, Senators Prince Johnson, George Weah, Yombri Kanga Lawrence, and Henry Yala, etc., along with Representatives Beaufort Chambers and Akara Square, etc. And through this medium, we like to remind them that while they have the right to ignore all these huge brown envelopes of fresh new ideas about our country that we keep sending to them, if, based on all of the big and good things that we hear them say on air, and we read about them in the newspapers or from them in the newspapers every time, if there are some matching ideas in these big brown envelopes that we're sending them, or the big brown envelopes of information that we keep sending them, which they could acknowledge, if there are ideas in these big envelopes, that they could acknowledge and say something about them, to add significance to them, but then they continue to refuse to do so because of some selfish reasons, then of course our God will hold them seriously responsible for things that will go on wrong later in the society. Because it is one thing to say it to yourself, it's another thing to welcome it when you hear another group of people trying to bring it up, because together we will change our nasty situation. So to all these people who we keep giving and continue to give our papers to, we say we haven't been doing this because we have no work to do. The huge brown envelopes you see us sharing, sending, every time we're taking steps, we sacrifice, we send out communications. It is not because we have so much resources to waste. No. Instead, we are going this extra miles, sometimes denying ourselves of food, just to furnish you with these vital pieces of information for our country. Again, because we believe in your intelligence and ability to assess these ideas and make objective inputs. You either have the option to accept these ideas and make some contributions to them, or you reject them openly, most preferably doing so respectfully by providing some reasons why you reject them, why you think they are not acceptable at this time. But if you just think that you must ignore them, then don't forget, again, as I said earlier, God will one day ask you to account for these pieces of information. That's who He is, so don't overlook it. So we continue to say we know that this battle is a great one and requires all hands on deck. That's why we have gone ahead, God willing, and somewhat formally introduced our planetary revolution, apart from all of what we said, to the world's biggest powers, as we said earlier, the United States and the United Nations first. We now encourage you in the public there to feel free to identify with us, so that together we can share ideas and efforts to free our people from this spiritual Egypt by the grace of God. Everybody knows that the issues here in our country are so huge, so dangerous, and so risky to debate. And as such, they need our extra mile efforts in assessing them, while at the same time need very strange approaches in addressing them. With all these being delicate processes and responsibilities that the government of Liberia has proven since its birth to absolutely have no maturity in addressing or exercising or presiding over. So we're saying the government of Liberia, since its birth, it has proven that it has no maturity. It can never preside over these huge issues that we are now debating as a people. So we're saying, if it is true that they had this kind of maturity, then we would not have been, or we would not have found ourselves excused in the kinds of quagmire and super mess in which we find ourselves in this place. For the old ways that we have gotten used to in understanding and looking at things here can never just work for us anymore. And so we must brace ourselves now for brand new, sometimes difficult ideas and approaches if change is to ever happen by the grace of God. And for this, or for us, who God has, out of His pure grace again, being able to mentor, to lead, or continues to mentor, to lead in this process, one big unconditional threat that we face is our huge exposure to all sorts of investigations and judicial processes for clearer understanding of our narratives, our motives, our arguments and actions. And that's why we will try as much as possible as human beings, God willing, in every one of our engagements to carefully hedge our deliberations and conversations against errors, misconceptions and misinterpretations, as we now represent the interests and dreams of a very huge constituency of God's children, including our huge unborn and future generations, in addition to the fact that our personal lives are seriously on the line for these kinds of engagements and honest commitment to seeking the good of all of our people, including even those who may want to consider themselves our detractors or will be enemies in this process. Now, the very key point, listen clearly, fellow citizens, the very key point to make clear to both our domestic public and the world over, regarding this issue of authority, interrogation, summoning, etc. Bulk of such ideas which the powers that be in this country use to intimidate good people and to stifle or kill well-intentioned streams, and thus prolonging the sufferings of our millions of people just for the benefit of a handful or a benefit of few. And all this being the expertise of the American Liberian GOL, we like to say here with all the emphasis that while it is true, we acknowledge that the government of Liberia currently manages the affairs of our country in some respect, although we vehemently disapprove of how they are doing this management. And we appreciate them. While it is true again, we appreciate them, even in our disagreements with them, for how far they have brought our country from 1822 to this point in 2017, etc. And we will accord them respect for their being our fellow citizens, fellow countrymen, fellow intelligentsia, and some authority trying to keep the wheels of society still turning to some little extent. We are not going to lend them legitimacy and extensive authority over our activities as we could have been required to do to a legitimate government of a truly independent and sovereign state. So we're not going to accord them, we're not going to allow them to take full control over our activities because we do not lend them such legitimacy. We respect them, we work with them, we consider them stakeholders, and we expect them to respect us. So we said, and this position is what we have taken 4+ years by God's grace to clearly and convincingly justify through massive amounts of writings and voice recordings, which they must first investigate thoroughly before ever putting up any counter arguments against our position. So the argument remains that as peaceful citizens, but very determined agents of true change for our people, something that they haven't experienced yet before, and also as true children of God who must stand up for his truths and principles, and as a group of citizens that have now justified that we are a de facto stakeholder in deciding the future of this place, God willing, we can cooperate with any of the Liberian government branches and institutions by attending to your cause to make clarities on any matters pertaining to our overall agenda, but not to subject ourselves to your now convincingly proven unjust laws and very corrupt and immoral judicial system or processes. And even on the issue of us being stakeholders now in our country's affairs, by the grace of God, we believe that we are of heavier weight in our stakeholding and thus legitimate than you by virtue of the characteristics of being, by virtue of the characteristics which we bring to the table, because without any arguments or doubt, truthfulness and honesty in intentions and deeds are the first determinants of legitimacy. And you, the GOL, terribly lack these virtues, but we will still accord you respect as we expect respect from you in return. So it's about respect and respect. But when it comes to legitimacy, we feel legitimacy must be tested by the sincerity of your actions, the honesty of your deeds, and we think we possess more legitimacy when it comes to those two basic yardsticks of legitimacy. And let's repeat, as we have said elsewhere, that because our biggest contentions in these debates are against the United States, and that as far as we are concerned, the biggest investor in the upkeep of this place is the United Nations, we will only submit to judicial processes initiated and conducted against us by anyone or all of these two big stakeholders if and only if there is any prima facie evidence that what we are now writing, speaking, and acting do not mean well for our country, our society, and our world over. If it is proven that we don't mean well, we will submit to any judicial process initiated and conducted by the United States government or the United Nations, but not Liberian government. They have proven to be very immature when it comes to the issues that we are discussing here. That's why during the first step of our revolution, second phase, that is the phase of taking our message out, as phase 3 will be a phase of constructively enforcing our message. So in phase 2, our first actions, we carry all of our perspectives about Mama Country and our agenda first to the United Nations and then to the United States, because we recognize their legitimacy, their superiority, their authority, everything over anything called Liberian authority. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, fellow listeners in our world, Liberia has been around as some entity for the past 195 years now, with all of the appalling facts and conditions that we have tried to elaborate on in this video or audio engagement. Great men and organizations have risen up and fought to change these narratives from appalling to decent and promising, but have all been finding it very difficult to reach anywhere closer to success yet. Great revolutionary movements, great political parties, great civil society organizations and individuals have worked and continue working to leave some substantial mark, but success in these endeavors and in these lines remain far faint, and sadly the problem of this country continues to grow at breathtaking pace, overwhelming everyone with increasing momentums in new developments that make things even much more difficult for poor countries such as Liberia. I was saying, people have been making effort to change this country's situation, and we have gone down for 195 years, and it has proven to be difficult, if not impossible. But here are another group of things that are making it even more difficult. One, increasing depletion of our natural resources. So for 195 years, we had natural resources in abundance and all of those stuff, and we have failed. Insult has been added to injury because of the increasing depletion of our natural resources. Terrific point B. Point B is rise in population. Now it adds insult to injury again. Rise in population. We had 1.5 million people first, 1 million people first, 2.5 million. Today we're going closer to 5 million. Things are becoming even more difficult. See, terrific advancement in technology and sophistications of doing things on the globe. That's another third point that's adding insult to injury, despite all of the efforts these great revolutionaries of our times have been fighting and have been feeling. Insult now has been added to injury. D, increasing quality standards in education and other basic social services, with Liberia instead retrogressing or taking a backward trend in all these positive directions, or consistently taking on a negative dimension in these different trends. While this picture is gloomy, we still remain highly appreciative to all that have been making and continue to make all the honest efforts at change. I'm just trying to let you know how the job that is at hand is not easy. We have a difficult task to perform. Now, with our new plain to revolutionary agenda, assuring our country and our people of delivering all this much needed change based on faith in God and the level of backing that we have from God directly, the next question or concern should definitely be a justified skepticism of some Liberian think or some Liberian talk again, as we all can now bear witness of as we all can now bear witness of how the adjective Liberian has been in 2 centuries, has proven in 2 centuries to justifiably be synonymous with failure, deceit, laziness, sycophancy, and the rest. Let's go back to this point. We're saying, now, with our new plain to revolutionary agenda, assuring our country and our people of delivering all this much needed change based on our faith in God and the level of backing that we have from God directly, the next question or concern should definitely be a justified skepticism of some Liberian think again or some Liberian talk again, as we all can now bear witness of how the adjective Liberian has proven in 2 centuries to be justifiably synonymous with failure, deceit, laziness, sycophancy, and the rest. That will be a genuine concern. People say, all of those things that people are saying, all the actions that they are doing, that's another Liberian thing. So watch out, listen. This is where exactly the difference lies with our Plain Truth Revolution. For we are vehemently and emphatically saying here that we are not Liberians. No, no, never. Although this soil on which this deceitful and thus treacherous and fragile theory of Liberia has been constructed upon for 195 years now belongs to us unconditionally. So we're not Liberian, the soil belongs to us, however. Again, this assertion or position may sound so mocking, unrealistic, impractical, or ridiculous to the ears. But if you bear us honest witness, just as a little proof from our initial actions thus far, the way in which we are proceeding, the things that we are speaking, the virtues that we are exhibiting, etc., all by the grace of God again, should now help to prove our claim to fellow compatriots and our world over that we are truly not Liberians. We have categorically rejected this demon name ever since few years back, since we woke up and started smelling the coffee by God's power. In fact, history and current events have even told us with emphasis, sad emphasis for that matter now, that allowing oneself to be called a Liberian is sadly a curse. This is about prejudice to our millions of innocent citizens, because to qualify as a Liberian, one must meet either or all of the four damning criteria below, which are: 1. Being morally lax, 2. Being mentally inferior, C. Being criminally oriented, and D. Being a promoter of mischief. Apart from our revolution rejecting the demon name Liberian, we also believe that millions of our compatriots out there do not deserve this tagging or demon name. A demon name or identity that has in 200 years convincingly proven itself to be associated with deceit, corruption, poverty, failure, and war. That's why we are exerting all the efforts, God willing, or by God's grace, to push this revolutionary agenda hard, as it also strongly advocates the change of our country's name from dull, divisive Liberia to some more inclusive, neutral, and productive name, to be determined at the Demanded Sovereign Citizens Convention between now and February 2018 by God's power. So for now, we prefer being called Green Coasters, and we believe that the salient clarifications we have now made here can allay some of your crippling fears that what you are reading or listening to from the Plain Truth Revolution is another Liberian thing, another 9-day wonder. God forbid. For this is never another Liberian thing by the grace of God. Thank you so much, therefore, for jumping on board this trustworthy and God-fearing bandwagon for final change for our country by the grace of God. Thank you for following.